The Retirement Cafe podcast, How to Retire at 40 with Chris Mamula. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode. This week, I am excited to share with you a conversation with Chris Mamula. If you're quite some way away from retirement age, this episode is just for you. At just 41 years old, Chris retired from being a physiotherapist, but his story starts long before that. After Chris and his wife worked out a plan to wipe out their debts early and save for a future lifestyle that they wanted to live, inspired by his own journey to financial independence, Chris started writing a blog. Now he runs Can I Retire Yet? With Darrow Kirkpatrick, a blog that sets out to show others how they could also gain financial independence and retire early. He's also the co-author of a book, Choose FI, Your Blueprint to Financial Independence, which gives its readers a framework for achieving their own financial freedom. In our conversation, Chris and I discuss how they lived on one salary and invested the other, the inspiration behind his blog, Can I Retire Yet?, and the advice he shares with college students starting out in their careers. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Chris. So, welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Chris Mamula.
Hi, Justin. It's great to be here.
Yeah, good to you to get up early. Well, I know you're an early bird. You're calling in from Utah today. Utah in, you tell me whereabouts you are. Give me a description for our listeners.
Yeah, we are in the mountain west of the United States, and we are big skiers. So we kind of chose our location to be where we have access, and we can do this as much as possible. So that's where we are.
Now, you see, it's all coming clear. Now, I know that you run a website called Can I Retire Yet? So, I mean, you're already giving it away. You're big skiers, you're a family man, and you've somehow at the early age of 42, 43 type of thing, you've already retired.
Yeah, I was a physical therapist, and I left my career at 41. And I'm actually from the eastern part of the United States, and then we moved west to live in the mountains and just kind of pursue our more ideal lifestyle. So we have a young daughter, and we're kind of ski bums in the winter, and we get out and bike and hike and climb in the summer, and that's kind of what we always dreamed of doing. And so we kind of reverse engineered our life to make that happen.
Wow. So was being a physiotherapist the only reason you did it so that you could retire from it? Or tell me about that.
No, I mean, I actually go back now, and I talk occasionally to physical therapists. I was actually scheduled to go back to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I went to school, and talk to their PT class this year. And one of my messages is like, they shouldn't be looking to retire early if they're just getting out of school and already thinking about wanting to retire. That's kind of setting yourself up for disaster. And so, no, I got into it because I loved, I was always active in sports, and I love the human body, and I love helping people. And I thought this would be this ideal career for me. And it was for about a year. And then I realized, like, this is not what I wanted to get into. And like in the States, I mean, our medical system is just so much bureaucracy. And I mean, I burn out really quickly on it and realized I could not imagine doing this for 30 or 40 years. But I didn't think that, retirement, I mean, we never, as a physical therapist in the States, you don't make a 6-figure salary. So the idea of retiring at 40 was kind of absurd to me. And what we just did is, because my wife and I, we both grew up in relatively modest backgrounds. We just kind of were comfortable without having a lot. So she had a similar salary to mine. And so we lived off of hers, and we banked mine forever. Just with this idea of, we liked the feeling of security. We were already living pretty well. We traveled. We were going all over the world, doing ski trips and mountaineering trips and doing the things we really wanted to do. And so that was kind of our plan, was just to build some security and then eventually become like ski bums, but with some security that most ski bums don't have. Um, and I eventually, after about 10 years, we didn't think we could have kids. We found out my wife was pregnant. And so that was like a shocker. And I think like for most people, it makes you get serious real quick. And so that's when I started like diving into personal finance, and I found this FIRE movement. And at first I still thought it was pretty absurd, the idea that, you could retire early. But as I started learning this, I mean, the math makes a lot of sense. And so I went down that rabbit hole, and it was such this big light bulb moment for me, and this awakening, like I've been missing this and I've been making all these other mistakes because I didn't think this was possible. And so I felt I had to share the message. So that's how I got into writing and sharing it.
Wow. Wow. What a story. What a story.
Mhm.
So, of course, the one thing I can hear you've pulled that, we talk about the levers of personal finance that you can pull. And one of the big levers, of course, is your savings rate, how much you spend and how much you save. And of course, that sounds like the big lever that you pulled was that, your first kind of key decision was, right, okay, we'll live on one salary and we'll save the rest. Tell me about that process. How did you get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of stumbled into it, honestly. And so my wife finished school 1 year before me, and I was in grad school. And she had not a lot of debt, but she had some debt. And my family was just extremely debt averse. So we didn't have a lot of money, but my mom knew how to stretch every penny. And so I got through my bachelor's and my master's degree through a combination of working, through some assistance from my parents and from scholarships. And I was debt free, and I was preparing to marry my now wife, and she had about $20,000 or $25,000 in debt, and she put herself completely through school with no parental assistance. She worked full time, so I knew she was responsible. I knew it wasn't like consumer debt, but it still freaked me out having any debt. And so
Yeah.
I just approached her and I said, like, so she started working. I said, what if, do you think you can, like, we can live off of your salary? And I was working part time. And I said, what if I put every penny to like getting us out of debt? And so we're out of debt before we get married. And so we did that. And, we were still living that college lifestyle, and we were pretty comfortable. And then so I came on with a full time physical therapy salary. And so now we really knew we didn't need that because we were already living off of her salary. And so we just started banking it, figuring we'd save for a house. And so that's what we did. And then we had a big down payment and we had a relatively low mortgage. And then we were just like, well, let's start investing. So I started putting half of my paycheck towards our house, half towards investments. And that's just kind of what we did. And then once the house was paid off, it was all going to investments. And we just, over time, like most people, we increased our salary. So our lifestyle was actually growing because we continued to live off of her salary. But we had a system in place and it worked, and it didn't take a lot of thought or effort. And it certainly didn't take any sacrifice. And yeah, it worked out well.
Now, of course, you know, it sounds like that you've been interested or you've got a passion for outdoor sports
Mhm.
and being a physiotherapist and a skier, etc. Now, outdoor sports often go with a with an expense account. There's always the next bit of. Well, I talk from experience because I look at my watch, it tells me all the things I can do and the altitude and all the rest of it, and then all and skis and stuff, kit, etc. It doesn't come cheap. How did you manage all, the next new set of blades that you wanted?
Yeah, so I think like with anything, almost anything in life can be as expensive or as cheap as you want it to be. So for us, I mean, yes, when we lived in Pennsylvania, we'd fly west. We would do a trip every year. And like where we ski now, we have season passes at Snow Basin Resort, it's a world-class resort. They had the Olympics when they were in Utah in, I think, 2002. That's where the downhill was. So, I mean, it's great terrain. It's a great resort. Everything about it's good. It's like $160 a day for a lift ticket, but because we live here, I think it's $600 a year for our season pass. And I ski
Great
like
value.
60 days a year. So I'm skiing for about $8, $10 a day. And, I'm doing it all the time. It's 20 minutes away. I'm not spending a lot of money traveling, staying in hotels, stuff like that. I do a lot of backcountry skiing, which you don't even need a pass. So it does, the gear's fairly expensive, maybe $1,500 for a setup. But then once you have it, you can have that for 5 or 10 years if you take care of your stuff. So, Yeah, I mean, if you have to travel and you have to hit 10 different resorts every year and you don't want to buy the pass and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, it could be very expensive and you need you quote unquote need new skis every year, which some people do. But yeah, I mean, I'll ski the same set of skis for 5 or 10 years at least. And yeah, I mean, I focus on the thing that really is important to me, which is having the access, getting out and doing it.
Yeah.
Um, and you find a way to do the other stuff, beg, borrow, and steal to get the gear, and you can make it happen.
Yeah, great. So of course you obviously developed a real passion for passing on this kind of way of life to other people. The book and the website, etc. So tell me what inspired you to once you'd managed to do this for yourself to pass on this message.
Yeah, so I mean, as we started going down this path, we were just saving again, not with any goal, not with any idea that this was actually possible. And I feel that there's so many people that could do something similar, but they just, they don't try because they don't think it's possible. And so what we wanted to do is with the blog and the book, they're a little bit different things. So with my book, what we did is I partnered up with the guys who do a podcast called Choose FI, and FI is financial independence. And what they did was take all these different people who have achieved financial independence in different ways, and we put those stories together. So it's not, not everybody can save half of their salary because maybe they live in a higher cost of living area or maybe they have less income, but there's different ways that you can kind of put together your path. Maybe you invest in a different way. You use real estate where you can use some leverage, or you invest in a personal business. And so we kind of took all these different stories and melded them together just to show that it's possible, and then to show what are the key principles that you can follow, no matter where you're starting from, and you can create your own story and create your own path to get to financial independence and live the lifestyle you want. And then on my blog, that's kind of developed a little bit differently. I started with a blog. It was called Eat the Financial Elephant. And the
Ah,
reason for that, it was kind of that there's a kid's riddle, like, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time. And like I said, like, I just started saving because it felt good, but I had no clue how to invest, how tax planning worked, any of that stuff. And I just found the whole process overwhelming. And I kind of found that, how you figure this out is you just do one little thing at a time. And so that was kind of always my message, is like, I don't blog or even my book, I don't do it like from this point of I'm a guru and I know everything and follow me. It's kind of like, I'm learning. If you want to learn along with me, I'm teaching the lessons as I go. It kind of holds me accountable to learn at a deeper level. Like, if you can write and teach somebody else, then I think you understand stuff better. So it makes me learn at a deeper level. And also because I was coming from this background where, for 10 years, yes, I was a good saver, but I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I think I can relate to other people who are, not necessarily personal finance geeks and looking to optimize every little thing, but they just want to live their life and live it well. And I think I can convey that message in a unique and interesting way. And so that's what kind of got me writing, and that's what I really focus on with the blog. I now blog. It's called Can I Retire Yet? I partnered with someone else, but yeah, that's kind of my origins, and that's still kind of the perspective that I try to bring to it.
yeah, yeah. And so coming back to, I'm quite interested in you've probably got a couple of perspectives, of course, but I'm interested in, you mentioned a minute ago that you were going to be talking to physiotherapists who are just about to qualify and launch out in their careers. And what were the key aspects of the advice that you would give them?
I think one of the things I would give them is to, um, I always tell people just to choose your own path and to kind of figure out your own way. I think so many people, they're kind of locked into this idea that you work for 40 or 50 years and then you retire and then you do whatever you want. And like, I don't know, like for me, I mean, so my big turning point when I got serious was having a daughter. And so like when you have a young child, like for me, again, my passions are skiing and rock climbing and mountain biking and these things that I may not, I mean, hopefully I can keep myself in good enough shape and I can do them, not wreck myself. And I can do them when I'm 70 or 80 still, at least to some degree. But, I can do these things now, but there's no promise that I can do them later. And so build your lifestyle, find a way, whether that means like, in the States, the challenge is healthcare. If you don't work full time, because most people it's tied to their employer. But if you can find a way to design your lifestyle so you're living what you want now, so you don't do what I did and burn out and then have to just feel like you need to retire because you just need a change so badly. So find a way to make work enjoyable, find that balance earlier in life. You can still save and live responsibly, but kind of just find your own path and figure things out. One of the other key messages I give is that, personal finance, it's not that difficult. People try to make things so complicated. And, if you get the big things right, if you can earn a decent income, if you get your structural costs with housing, transportation, food, and then once you do that, you can do, at least in the States, I know it may be a little bit different with how you guys work, but with tax planning, if you get these big things right, there's a lot of room for the other stuff. But if you're constantly struggling paying interest on a mortgage that's too big for a house that you didn't necessarily need, for car payments, things like that, it's really hard to make things work. So get the big things right and kind of design your path. And that's kind of where I try to get people to go.
Yeah, yeah, wise advice. Um, and I think the key things I'm hearing here are, get rid of the debt early. That's a key thing that you put into your plan, and then yeah, working out what's important to you. Of course, the majority of our listeners at the Retirement Cafe are kind of approaching retirement or actually in retirement already. What's your, I mean, okay, you are in retirement, but you may not be the kind of typical age of the retirees in the UK, but I would have thought they're pretty similar in the US of, it's
Mhm.
55, 60, 65 kind of things. That's where I'm hanging up my boots and whatever I've been doing. What would your kind of thought process there of people who are approaching retirement for the first time? This is the first time that they have reached possibly financial independence.
Yeah, and this is kind of our core audience at Can I Retire Yet, who I'm typically talking to. And yeah, I mean, I think the key thing that I look at there is I talk a lot about what I call redefining retirement. Um, I think it's really helpful if people look at, like, what is the history? Like, where the heck did this whole idea of retirement come from? And really, people didn't, if you look back, people didn't choose to retire. People were retired, like kind of like you retire, like you talked about my old skis or my old boots or whatever. You retire them because they don't work anymore. And that's kind of the idea. Is people, the origin of retirement was, let's get these older people out of the workforce so we can have more productive people come in. And people didn't want to retire. And it's been turned into this whole industry of, like, yeah, if you do this, and then you get to retirement, and then everything falls into place, and you can live your ideal life, and you play golf every day or walk on the beach, and you see the same brochures. But I think what I tell people is, again, design. It's the same advice I give people starting their career as people looking at retirement. Is, what do you want your life to look like? What adds value? I recently read a book. I think it's called The Second Mountain, and it was really good, and it kind of talked about, it was, I find when I try to read retirement books that talk about this, finding your purpose or your meaning, they're stuck in this paradigm of, you work to this point and then after retirement, you start living. And this idea was, I think for most people, you get to a point in life, a lot of times, maybe it's when you have kids, maybe you have your first health scare, something like that. And you realize there's more to life. And there's this whole idea of a second mountain. And I like that because it didn't really tie into the financial aspect, but no matter where you're at, I think those same things apply. Is figure out what matters to you, and then how do you build that life? And the whole idea that, you're going to be happy and everything's going to fall into place when you don't have to work. There's just a whole new set of stresses. Now you're worried, like, am I going to run out of money? As you're older, and is your health going to be there? All these new things. So I think the more that you can start living this lifestyle sooner, maybe work part-time, maybe find hobby jobs, find things that, you know, first off, give you some passion and meaning in life. And then also they can take some of that stress off of a traditional retirement. So I think retirement is broken, is, I guess, the very short answer after my long rambling. But that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that, you don't have to retire at all. And I think the whole idea of retirement, I would question that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely true. And I talk about making sure that whatever ladder you're climbing at the moment, make sure it's up against the right wall.
Mhm.
Because I think similar to the analogy in the second mountain is that you can reach that first one and then realize that it was the wrong mountain that you've been climbing all this time, and
Right.
it's over there.
And I
Don't.
will just I will just clarify, we do write a lot about, like, the finances of a traditional retirement, because it's important to understand, a lot of people don't choose to retire still. I mean, a lot of times, if you look at literature, a lot of people stop working because they can't work anymore because of their health, because they have to care for a spouse who their health, because their industry changes and they got cut back. So it's good to have that position of financial independence where you don't have to rely on somebody else for a paycheck. So I think the financial independence part is extremely valuable, but the retire early part, um, Yeah, I mean, I think it's overrated, and I think people should really question that.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's the future hold for you, Chris? I mean, obviously, you're already retired, but tell me what are your plans?
Yeah, so that's a great question that I'm honestly trying to figure out. I think, like for everybody, 2020 has thrown a major monkey wrench into everything I thought I knew about the world. And yeah, so it's been a struggle for me this year, just being locked down, kind of losing access to friends and family. Like we kind of designed our lifestyle. So we have an Airbnb in our house that we could use for rental income, but we mostly use for family to come visit. We usually have family here at least every other month. And we go back, like typically for Christmas, we go back to Pennsylvania. We can't do that this year. So this has
No.
kind of really rocked our world in that way. So hopefully we're going to get back to traveling and being able to have access to the people we love. And then this is kind of really just being isolated has really kind of made me realize that the things I like are connecting with people. On a volunteer basis, I started doing some volunteer work last year with adaptive ski program here. It kind of allows me to combine my passions for the outdoors and physical therapy. I'd like to get more into doing volunteer type work. But I also, as far as like my blog, I love writing and helping people in that way because you can reach a wide audience. But I really miss that one-on-one aspect of being a physical therapist and having that closed feedback loop and working with people closely. So I'm looking at ways to maybe do some financial coaching, or I'm actually kicking around getting a CFP and doing a little bit of work on the side, kind of help people in that way on the technical side of planning. So I'm all over the place and figuring things out. And as the world kind of settles, I'll get more clarity. But that's kind of where my general thoughts are and where I'm going with things.
Great, great. No, it's and I presume it's always about creating the gap, isn't it? You know, the gap between allowing us to the space to make decisions. And I often find that anyone who is uh, suddenly retired or gets retired and suddenly has that opportunity to go, okay, now what is important and what would I like to do next, and to live and to have purposeful lives. I mean, that's so important for all of us, isn't it? It's you're absolutely right. There's connotations of this retirement that's with it's the old set of boots, whereas it doesn't need to be. It actually could be the new set of boots, and where they're going to take you.
Yeah, and you hear a lot like there's advice to, don't retire from something, retire to something, which I generally think is pretty good. But I think I took that too far. So before I was done working, I had this new blog project lined up with Can I Retire Yet? And I had my book project lined up. And so for the first 2 years, I was just knee deep in that. And then we also moved across the country. And so, yeah, I'm kind of just at the point now where the book is out. It's been out for about a year. The blog, I'm kind of settled into a routine. We kind of were into a routine before the whole lockdowns and COVID and everything. So I'm just kind of trying to stop and take a deep breath and kind of figure out that what comes next, because you can definitely overdo that. Retiring to something, I think I retired to too many things, and so you kind of, in my mind, I think like when I was working a 40-hour week and commuting an hour a day, I was like, how am I going to fill my time? And it's almost kind of hard to conceptualize till you get to that point. And so I guess maybe some other good advice is just leave some space and have a little bit of grace for yourself. And you have to kind of figure some things out as you go.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Chris, it's been fascinating chatting to you today. Where can people find more about you, your book, your website, and get in contact if needed?
Yeah, so my blog is called Can I Retire Yet? And we kind of talk to people contemplating that decision is kind of where our focus is with that. And so that's where I'm most active, and you can find me online if you want to connect. And my book is called Choose FI, Your Blueprint to Financial Independence. And we kind of wrote that for people earlier in the stage, ideally. But we found a lot of people who are kind of late savers who are maybe in their 40s or 50s and haven't saved yet. They can apply these FIRE, financial independence, retire early principles, and to kind of catch up. And so it's taken a new life with the older audience too. So people may get some value out of that. And I'd love if people would check out the book.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I really appreciate you getting up so early, and I wish you all the best with the ski season and coping with lockdown, and I hope we all come out the other side. And thanks for your wisdom.
Likewise, and thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. It's a pretty neat, even as bad as 2020 has been, it's a pretty neat world where, you're in Europe and I'm over here in the States, and we can, connect and do this for free and have interesting conversations. And it's a pretty amazing world if you step back and look at it that way. So it's a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Chris. Thanks once again to Chris Mamula for sharing his story with us. To find out more about Chris and his company, Can I Retire Yet? Check out the show notes on our website at theretirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll find some useful links. I know that some of our listeners prefer to watch my conversations, so we upload a video version of every episode to my YouTube channel, Justin King. You'll find a link in the show notes on our website. When you watch on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell symbol to receive notifications every time we upload a new video so that you never have to miss an episode. If you'd like to get in touch, you can find me on Twitter at JustinKingCFP or email me on hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. So until next time, this is Justin King helping you feel more informed in your retirement.